So anyway, I promised to share with you your feedback, and for the 120 or so, not just of clients, but also other people, we think we had a great level of response to our survey that we did earlier in the year in terms of getting what's going on in the industry, and pretty much we think that's the key industry thinkers across the industry. So really pleased to get that. So I'm going to share with you a few stats, and then I'm going to ask my panelists to come and join me to discuss those in a little bit more detail. But some of the key facts. The top 3 business challenges, you're probably not going to be terribly surprised. Regulatory burden, still top of the list. So I guess that's the regulatory services you provide to your customers, but also the regulatory burden you have to adhere to as service providers and other functions you might add. But then providing those and doing those in an efficient way, because there is an awful lot. We are a little bit behind in this industry in terms of automation and digitalization, so doing that more efficiently, so that's very much front of mind. But the other interesting area that keeps on coming up is the quality of data. Definitely a big problem that we need to improve quality of data. Obviously, it's the heart of what we do in Trust Corporate Services and Fund Administration, so that's a key issue to try and address, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. We think digitalization is a key driver to enable all those challenges. So we've asked again, how do you score yourself out of 10? Interestingly, you scored yourself out of 10 exactly the same as you had the last 2 years. So still at a 5 out of 10. Okay, so that's good. So we predicted this, so we thought let's be a bit more sort of granular in terms of asking the question. And this is where the visions that I've mentioned a few times already came up. Okay, have you got your data consolidated in one place? How do you do the regulation? How do you meet that regulatory burden? How do you deliver those regulatory services? How do you then automate those services you're providing to do them on a more efficient basis, particularly as the industry moves away from sort of time and materials, time and recording billing, through to fixed price or ad valorem fees. We see that as a key driver for people to become more automated. And ultimately, that's going to grow your margin, but how do you grow your top line? By differentiating yourself in the market. And can we help with that in terms of things like digital engagement with your end clients? So that's our roadmap or pathways to digitalization. So we ask, how do you think you're getting along with that? Well, pretty much everybody, 9 out of 10, said the industry will become much more digitalized in the next 5 years. No big surprise, similar stats from previous years. But then when we asked, okay, have you started on that pathway we've described? And only a third of you had. So you're scoring yourself 5 out of 10, but only a third of you have actually started on a digitalization pathway. So interesting dichotomy there. We talked about dichotomy last year. But again, the consistent theme is technology and innovation needs to accelerate in this industry, and I absolutely agree with that. I know it sounds self-serving as a software provider in this market, but nevertheless, that's I think it's absolutely true. In terms of that consolidation, only a third of you have got a common platform to bring the data together on. In terms of regulation, 3/4 of you do not have a single system for regulatory compliance. But everybody recognises, and we talked about that RPA example back from the hackathon, but 86% of you think that interaction with regulators is going to become more digitalised. No surprise there, and we're seeing that at the JFSC last year, and I'm sure that we know about Luxembourg and the UK all have automated regulation APIs and what have you, and increasingly automated forms that you fill in. In terms of efficiency and that kind of drive for automation, 87%, as you can see here, have not fully automated all their manual processes, and 3/4 of you, similar kind of number, think you could be more efficient, and so it's therefore not as surprising that only 1/4 of you think you're more profitable than your competitors. So there's definitely plenty more to do in terms of automation, and we absolutely recognise that, and we want to help to do that and enable that. So no particular surprises there. In terms of meeting clients' expectations, in other words, how do you differentiate? We asked around the portal, still a low level of portal take-up in this industry, but everybody thinks that it will become more prevalent, 81%. And the interesting stat is more than half of you think you're going to digitalise your business in the next 2 years, which is, I think, great. Yeah, it's great that people are actually beginning to recognise it. I think the question is how you do that. So that's a really interesting set of stats. So just to kind of summarise, and then if my panellists can get warmed up to come and join me, the summary is, I think, is that there's a recognised need, and we saw this last year, that the digitalisation can drive a lot of business benefit in the industry. It is lagging behind other industries, the corporate service and trust industry, and to a certain extent fund admin, so there's a lot more to be done, but there's a need for a clear pathway and a clear set of direction and some help to do it. So that's the summary of the report.